order. And the first thing that I would like to do is begin even before roll call with an acknowledgement. And please remind me, I think it's important that we do this at every meeting going forward. And I hope that all county government entities will do this at meetings going forward. Let us acknowledge we reside on the ancestral lands and waters of the Coast Salish people who have called this place home since time immemorial. And let us honor Aboriginal and treaty rights that have been passed down from generation to generation.
Very nice.
And that is the draft that is going to be proposed to be in the very beginning of the charter that will be discussed at some point later. I don't even remember which agenda it's on. So if people have issues or ideas or additions, what have you, let us know. But it is important to recognize where we are and that none of us on this call this evening, well, I'm not sure. I don't know about the guests who are here from the public, but I know that none of the commissioners are first peoples of these lands. So that acknowledgement is really important. With that, Catherine, can we begin the roll call?
Certainly. Sharon?
Here.
Dave Anderson?
Here.
Bill?
Here.
Janet?
Here.
Kyle?
Here.
David Dellendorf?
Here.
Paul?
Here.
Jane?
Oui, je suis ici.
Patty?
Here.
I believe Tony was traveling. Tony, are you here? Richard?
Here.
Liz?
Here.
Bob?
I'm here.
Kevin?
Salamat Tidor.
Olivia?
Here.
Maureen?
Here.
Anne Marie?
Here.
And Tom?
Here.
Thank you all.
Jane, what was my pronunciation off again? Come on. It's 20 years since I spoke Indo.
Salamat tidur? Oh. Tidak, Papa.
Mhm. I got that. Okay. So I'm going to add an agenda item right now, and that is to introduce Megan McLean. And her contract was signed both ways today. So Megan, you want to raise your hand and say hello to folks? Megan is the incredible
Everyone.
going to continue helping us along with Catherine and all of you to get our work done in the next, 13 days. So I don't know if we should congratulate you or if we should feel bad for you, Megan, but we are extremely excited that you're on board. So if you just spend a minute introducing yourself, that'd be great.
Okay. So I'm Megan McLean. I live on Lopez. I'm a fairly new resident to the islands. I have a background in tourism development. I'm a historian by training. I've spent most of the last 10 years or so abroad. And in addition to the tourism development, I've also done a lot of work on municipal kinds of governance issues. So I'm really excited to be working with all of you. I know it's going to be a crazy ride, but we'll get through it.
Wonderful.
Megan, welcome. Yeah, when I saw her CV, I was like, oh my God, she's totally overqualified.
We'll see.
Megan, yeah, we'll see. Maybe by tomorrow we're like, eh. Anyway, Megan, welcome and thank you. I want to just take a couple seconds and describe the process that we're thinking. So we can't have Megan immediately get inundated by every single commissioner with the 100 pent up questions that you may have. So what I would like to throw out as a suggestion, and I want just a couple minutes discussion on this, is that we want to begin with the subcommittee chairs who have questions, and if you're on, everybody's on a subcommittee. So if your subcommittee still has questions, get them to your subcommittee chair, and they will get them to Megan, but copy me as well. And it's not that I'm going to be a gatekeeper. It's that I want to try and manage the flow that's coming into Megan. If you're not a subcommittee chair and you have questions, it does not mean that you cannot pose questions and get help from Megan on research. It's just that we want to try and manage it. So just send those to myself and Megan, and we can take a look at that. And I hope that process will work. Are there any questions or thoughts on that process? I love not seeing hands. Not that I don't love hearing from you. Okay, so let's just by consensus say that that's our process. So priority with subcommittee chairs and copy me. And then Megan and I will go through her calendar to make sure she's not totally swamped in the first 24 hours. I don't want her to, by tomorrow morning be saying, what the hell did I do? Let's give her at least a week to say that. So Megan, thank you again. It's really great to have you on board. And you met via email, Olivia, right here, and Catherine, who's been our incredible staff so far. So you'll be working really closely with them. You'll realize quickly, I don't really do anything. It's them that make everything happen. So with that, let's move on to the approval of the minutes. Are there any questions or additions or concerns with the minutes? And we're doing both the May 12th and the May 13th minutes. So let's take the May 12th first, please. Any issues? If not, I would accept a motion to adopt the minutes. Bob?
I have one thing. At the very end of the meeting, I made a motion to keep the sheriff's position elected. And it was kind of a switch of my position. And I think there was a second, but we put off with the vote. That's not in here, that there was a motion made and seconded. I suppose it's not in here because I think you said we would have to remake the motion, didn't you, Kevin?
Yeah, you actually withdrew your, if I remember
I
correctly.
did?
You
Okay.
withdrew your motion.
Right.
If you want it in the minutes, we could add it. That's
No,
fine.
no,
That's-
you're reminding me, Kevin.
It's
I
the next
withdrew.
agenda item, so I think we can.
Yeah.
We could.
Thank
So
you.
With that non-change, I would accept a motion to adopt the May 12th minutes.
I'd so move.
Bob and Jane is second. Okay, all those in favor
Aye.
Aye.
or abstentions? Okay, the minutes are adopted. On to the May 13th, 2021 minutes. Any concerns, issues, questions on those minutes? If not, I would accept a motion.
So moved.
Jane moves.
I'll second. Okay.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions? Any, oh, I'm sorry, and I should have asked any opposed. So first any opposed, and then any abstentions. Kyle Davies. Okay, the minutes are adopted. Okay, so now we're going to go into the, what was that? David, can you mute yourself, please? Thank you so much. We're going to go into what I hope is not much of a discussion, but really just the vote. I was telling Olivia and Catherine that I hope this entire next agenda item takes less than 2 minutes, and there's a minute with me just talking about it. So I would like to know if there's a motion to either have the sheriff be appointed or have the sheriff be elected, remain elected. And then after that, we will have discussion. So if you do have a point, we will obviously have discussion on the motion, but I'd like to begin with the motion. Paul?
I move that the sheriff position remain as an elected position.
Second. Second.
Moved by Paul and seconded by Bob. Any discussion? None. Okay. I will say one thing, which is not only am I very supportive of this motion, I really want to thank our sheriff. Having gone through a similar situation, it is really difficult to have just rapid fire questions that ultimately are questioning your job. And not only did he handle it with grace and professionalism, I thought he swayed some of you with his answers and his clarity of what not only he is doing, which is a great job, but also his vision for how to make it even better, recognizing that everybody can have improvement. Jane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to affirm that what you just said, Kevin, and I did want to. I shared this with the Justice and Equity Committee members in our meeting on Monday, but I really had a really appreciative and appreciated email exchange with Sheriff Krebs after the meeting to get a sense of. He shared with me his sense of, desire to do better if there's areas where better can be done, so to speak. And so I really, I appreciated all that he shared in terms of his perspective and I found it quite compelling. And he was very generous and patient with us. So very appreciative of that.
Sheriff, you're allowed to turn on your video if you want, but we're gonna call the question here. But David, I see your hand, sorry.
Yeah, to keep within 2 minutes, I call the question.
Good, all right. There we go. So all those in favor of keeping the sheriff as an elected position within San Juan County?
I,
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, the motion carries. The sheriff will remain elected. And Sheriff Krebs, we thank you for your remarkable and really dedicated service.
yes.
Thanks,
Okay.
guys. Appreciate it.
Okay, now you can get back to saving us. You know, unless you want to hang out. Sorry, we've taken so much of your time. Okay, we're going to move directly into the committee report for the process committee. Who's going to take the lead on that? Janet is.
Well, no, I actually had a question on the,
Sorry.
Not the process.
Be great if
What?
Janet did.
well, no, on, yeah, I'm going to do the process. I haven't been on the committee, but I'm just going to make it up as I go along.
Yeah.
Might as
On
well.
the agenda, there was a item, and we've skipped over it, follow-up to climate and environment report. I don't know what that was.
There was an updated agenda sent out. Sorry,
Sorry.
let me clarify that. I have bumped that to next Wednesday. There were a number of questions posed by the prosecuting attorney, and also the public has come in with several comments. And the chair of the committee and members of that committee had asked that they have a little more time to address those questions, since some of them came in more recently. And then I think there will be an opportunity for all of us to have, frankly, a more concise presentation on what's being recommended, but also a much more vetted presentation. So that will be on the following Wednesday. And Janet, thank you for that. I wanted to make that comment for the public's sake as well. And so we will not be discussing that this evening. That will be a week from this evening. And unless there's any objections, I'd like to move forward. Is that okay?
Yep.
Wonderful,
Yeah.
thank you. Okay. So
Okay.
then Janet is going to present on a committee she's never been on. Please, Janet, I look forward to this. No, I'm kidding. Whose process?
Me,
Bob, right on. Go.
yes. Patty has a document that she is going to share with us presently,
Let me do that.
I think, I hope.
Yeah,
Maybe.
I'm gonna attempt to here. There it is. And let's
We,
see.
there are 4 items. I'm going to start with obviously with the first 3, and then we'll talk about where we are with the 4th item. Okay. As soon as it comes up.
Can you see it yet?
No, we just see your name and it says has started screen share. Oh, there it is. Wow, that's beautiful. Thank you. The first item was to take a look at, and if we thought it was necessary to revise the preamble to the charter. The preamble to the charter presently is a short 1-sentence item that just establishes, that just reiterates that we are taking advantage of the home rule charter provision to try and give us as much self-governance as possible. And that's it. That's all it says. We changed that, added 2 other sentences, which in essence are also separate paragraphs, so that the proposed new preamble reads as follows: "We, the people of San Juan County, Washington, establish this home rule charter, securing for ourselves the rights granted by law and the responsibilities of self-governance. All persons within our county are equal under the law and afforded equal protection under those laws. We recognize the interdependence between a healthy community, a resilient economy, and a vibrant natural world, and acknowledge our place as part of the natural world." Our findings to back this up were that the existing preamble to the Home Rule Charter sets out the county's intention to take control over its own local government to the extent allowable under Washington's Home Rule Charter provisions. It is important, however, for the preamble to also set the tone for the charter by including equal protection under the laws for its people and by recognizing the requirements of nature to survive and to thrive. Okay. Do we want to deal, Kevin, with these one at a time? And
I think while it's fresh in people's minds, unless there's any objections, we could stop screen share and see if there's any comments, and if not, take a vote to say that's our preamble.
Well, I'll start off by making a motion that we can then use as a basis for discussion, that we adopt what the process committee came up with and what I just read to you as the new preamble to the charter.
David
I
is,
second.
okay, Maureen C seconds. Under discussion, David? You're muted, David.
Was this distributed earlier?
I think so. I'm not absolutely certain. I thought that we had sent, and it has been changed, by the way. We tweaked it as late as yesterday. We tweeted this preamble because some other things that happened caused us to have to make a slight change in it. 2 sentences went away as a result of other things.
What I'd like to ask you to do,
David, wait,
put it back up on the,
please, wait a sec.
well,
I just want to clarify. Olivia, were you responding to that? Do you know when it was distributed, or do you have a separate question?
For question.
Okay, thank
It
you.
was passed, Kevin, it was passed on, and David, it was passed on April 20th of 2021. And I don't recall whether we sent it to the commission or were told not to wait until now to give it to the full commission.
And see
But it's
why
only
you're-
3 sentences long, so, you know.
So you can put it up again and folks can read it.
yes, please, thank you.
Yeah, and David, did you have something else? I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just want to make sure Olivia didn't have a direct response to your question.
No, I just wanted to be able to see it because I don't remember having received it before. And so it disappeared and
Yeah, so this is good. So folks, take a look at this now. And now's the time, if there are any changes, hopefully we don't get into editing by committee, but
Hope not.
now's the time to suggest changes if you have them.
Bob, this is Janet. Well, it's up. What were the 2 sentences that were taken out?
Oh, boy. We should have-
And you're muted.
You're muted. You're muted.
who is muted?
There we go. For reasons,
You're muted.
whoa. Okay, it's supposed to be off now. All right. We took out 2 sentences for reasons which will be apparent when we start talking about the final item, the number 4 item. But the 2 sentences we took out, which began after, as part of the natural world at the end there, we had in there, we recognize that, hello? We recognize that nature has the right to survive and thrive and affirm our obligation to defend those rights. Doing so secures, hello? Is somebody wanting to stop me?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Doing so secures the future for ourselves and those who follow. And so we had a tough meeting, I would say, on Sunday. We've had a number of extra meetings that we've had to call because of the difficulty of grappling with a Bill of Rights that might contain the rights of nature. And talking also through memo with Randy, who gave us some advice regarding that. And we ended up at a place where at an unfortunate place, we thought, but there we were, where we had to back away from what I think was of some importance to most of the committee, which was to talk about the rights of nature. And we ended up with looking at instead a declaration of community values, which would contain many of the same things, but would be voiced in that kind of language, and would include the strongest possible now there would be requests to the appropriate people in government, in county government, to conduct themselves with those values in mind.
Okay, and Bob,
Anyway, that's why the last two sentences were out.
okay, and
Yes, sir.
Bob, I've got Olivia, David, Patty. I just want to clarify. I heard Janet's question a little differently. Janet, were you asking what was the preamble before we began our work?
No. I was wondering what was there were two sentences that he said that were taken out. And I just didn't know if it,
Right.
Okay, wonderful. So then I've got Olivia and David and Patty.
Should I
I was listening to you say that this was recently reworked. Is the preamble that's displayed here, was this wording that was approved by Randy or commented on by Randy, or has this not been through his office yet?
It was changed as a result of things that Randy told us about the rights of nature. But no, we haven't sent this. We didn't see anything controversial after you take that part out, anything even remotely controversial in this preamble that Randy would need to comment on. Maybe somebody does, but I don't see it.
David.
Yeah, I kind of like the things that were taken out, but those are that was quite lengthy. I mean, I like the short points here, 1, 2, 3. And maybe those things that were taken out are going to be covered by the environmental amendment that we're talking about. But one thing I would suggest considering adding very, very briefly to the last one recognizes interdependence and acknowledgement. I would think that it should also add, and the obligation to maintain those items, that maintain a healthy community, maintain a resilient economy, and maintain a healthy natural world. So one thing is to say we acknowledge they exist, but the other is to say the preamble states that we have an obligation to maintain those items as healthy and resilient, et cetera.
Okay, and before I go to Patty, I just want to make one comment, please, which is we have a ton of work to do, and I apologize. I meant to bring this up in the beginning. Unless there's objections, and there will be exceptions to this, but I would like to ask that commissioners try to only speak once on a topic. And this is a rule under Robert's rules you can adopt. I don't know if we need to adopt it as a formal rule at this point, but I'd like to try and say that each of us only speak once on each motion or each topic. And of course, if there's some strong issue that comes up that you have, you want to respond to somebody, then we can have some exceptions, but let's not make that the norm. Are folks okay with that? I see a lot of nodding and thumbs up. Okay, so we're going to go forward with that as what we're going to try and accomplish. Patty, you're next, please.
I was just going to say, of course, I'm in favor of this preamble, but when you started this meeting, Kevin, you made the statement about, the Salish peoples and everything, and said something like that was going to go at the beginning of our charter. Should it also just be placed in the preamble, or what?
The recommendation from one of the committees, I have no idea which one, is going to be that statement go before the preamble, that it be a standalone item in the charter and the very first 1A item in the charter, which is to recognize where we live and whose land it is and honor that. And so that'll be a different conversation, but right now that's the recommendation. But thank you for that, Patty. I can't see everybody. Are there any more questions?
Kevin, yeah.
Jane?
I just wanted to follow on from that and just say that, Patty, that'll be discussed tomorrow in the Justice and Equity Committee presentation, because it's one of our proposed amendments. So we'll go over that tomorrow.
Thank you.
You wouldn't have known that unless you read the document I sent you all yesterday.
It seemed like we could have put it in the preamble since, that's supposed to be the beginning of the document. That's all.
As we'll discuss tomorrow, the Justice and Equity Committee had a discussion about this and felt that having it be a standalone statement made sense. But we can discuss that tomorrow.
Yeah.
Any other comments on? Maureen calls the question. Paul, did you have a comment, or were you calling the question? Wonderful. Okay, so The motion on the floor to adopt this as our, and I can't remember Bob, were you the maker of the motion?
Yes, sir, I was.
Who was the second?
Maureen?
Maureen was
Yes.
the second. So there's a motion and a second to adopt this language that was just on our screen as the new preamble of the San Juan County Charter. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I,
Comment.
Well, the motion's been on the floor for the last 5 minutes. You've already spoken twice, David, and we just said we were going to try and not speak multiple times. I will
Well,
make an exception. at
So
this-
if
let's
each one comment, then you can't speak when the motion is made? I mean, come on. That's right.
The motion's been on the floor for some time. All of the previous conversation was under discussion. Bob put the motion on in the very beginning. And so that was all under discussion. I asked for the motion to be repeated so that folks were clear on what the motion was. And technically we're in the middle of the vote right now. Can we finish the vote and then you can make a comment?
I'll make a comment after you finish the vote. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, David. Okay, all those opposed? Okay, David's opposed. Okay, any abstentions? Okay, the chair votes aye. The motion carries. That's the new preamble of the San Juan County Charter. David, please.
Well, I object to having only one opportunity to speak and then my comment is ignored. I would hope that if somebody makes a comment for a change, that there's some kind of consensus or discussion or something. Otherwise, what I'm going to do, if I have one opportunity to speak, what I'm going to do is preserve it for a motion. So I should have made a motion to add certain wording, because otherwise comments are going nowhere under this system.
No, I'm sorry, David. You made a suggestion and there was nobody else who commented on it, and you did not frame it as a friendly amendment to the motion. And since we were under a motion and formally in discussion, if you'd said, I want to have a friendly amendment, then I would have asked if the maker of the motion and the second of the motion were going to accept that friendly amendment. I fully appreciate what you're saying. I apologize if it wasn't clear, but the motion was put on the table in the very beginning, so the entire dialogue was under discussion of the motion. I'm just trying to move us through this. With regard to only speaking once, like I said, there will be exceptions. And so if there's something like that, and I'm sorry I didn't see your hand before the vote was called. Yeah. So
We move forward.
yeah, next on the agenda.
the next item was a definition of the word nature. We discussed that early on, realizing that we were going to be dealing a lot with the subject of nature and that it would be a good thing if people knew and agreed hello? What was that? That we agreed that we knew what we were talking about. So the definition that was offered to the committee and that we agreed upon was nature, a universal, interdependent, regenerative, self-regulating and evolving system governed by immutable physical laws. Okay, the findings for that particular action was that given the importance of the concept of nature to some of the proposed amendments to the charter, it was necessary that anyone reading the charter down the road would understand what the commission meant when it used the word.
Can we stop screen share for a moment?
Oh, you bet.
Thank you, Patty. And thank you for toggling back and forth, Patty. I really appreciate it. Any questions? Let's not put a motion on the table yet, if that's okay.
Okay, all right, but I do have a comment.
Yeah, Bob first and then others.
It struck me for the first time looking at it that we were supplying the commission with a definition of the word nature. And I think what we were thinking about when we wrote that definition was the work of our own committee, which was heavily kind of nature centric. But now I'm realizing that other committees will have used that word and they need to be good with that definition. So I would ask other committees that have used that word to look at it closely and don't adopt it if it seems like it ought to say something else. But we thought it was pretty all-inclusive and a fair definition.
Jane, did I see your hand? And before you go, no? Okay, just before anybody else goes, Catherine, if you could mute everybody except for myself and Bob at this point. Somebody's got like C3PO behind them.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
So you will have to unmute yourself to be heard. So any other then I'm muted. So any other comments? Okay, I actually have a comment. Anne Marie, please.
Well, I was just wondering, how many definitions are we going to do? I mean, is this the only definition we're going to have in the charter? I was just curious. I wasn't sure what is it so much different than like what's in the regular dictionary or Oxford? I just am asking the question because I don't know.
Yeah. Bob, do you want to respond to that on how they?
Well, first of all, I'll say that there is no definition section in the charter presently. There is a definition section in the county code. It could end up, therefore, being in the county code and referred to there when we need the definition. Bill, was it you that came up with most of those words, or who was it on the committee?
I came up with a first draft, and I think actually this is an artifact of the idea that rights were going to be given to nature, and we were trying to define to what exactly were we giving rights. That vanished as a result of some legal conclusions, but the reference to nature to avoid argument has remained in so that people would have some idea. It's the problem with a legal document is we're using a term that is almost intuitive. And so out of an abundance of caution, we have left it in for hopeful clarity. People may decide that it's not necessary, but I'm a wordy guy. And if it's helpful, I hope it's supported.
Thank you, Bill.
Any other questions or comments at this point? Liz, and then David.
I would be inclined, given that the focus of putting in a legal definition of nature was all around the issue of recognizing the rights of nature, that it's no longer necessary and that we omit it. Oh, I'm saying that word wrong. Scratch it.
Omit it.
Yeah,
Yeah. David, please, and then Bob, I'll circle back to you. And by the way, under the rules that we have right now, or the consensus that we have on speaking, the presenter of the issue can obviously speak more than once, as can the maker of a motion. David.
My understanding from hearing Alexandra is the definition of nature in the modern world and the environmental world is different than the old-fashioned Webster Dictionary nature definition. So I would argue including it, and I suggest maybe you just put the definition in the preamble and add a fourth sentence there because that's where the term is used in the first place. So just put it in the preamble.
Others at this point? Okay, if I may, I have a, go ahead, Bob.
I know it's frustrating to David to have no one comment on it, so I will comment on that.
Hey.
I don't think it belongs in the preamble at all. The preamble is a pure item, and if we're going to have a definition, it ought to be somewhere else. I will say that when Liz made her observation, that did make some sense to me that we might be able to get rid of it. Then when David made his comment about how it's more specific now when we talk about nature, that made sense to me too, and that argues for keeping it in. So anyway, it's the pleasure of the commission.
If I may, I have a comment, actually twofold. The first is that I think it's very important that if we're going to do this, that we have a definition section. I do not agree that it would be in the preamble. There would need to be a definition section, which is another conversation. It could be the only definition. The other piece, however, is I do remember having this discussion in the legislature, and I know that in statute, in statute, there are, in some legislation, I don't know if there's a direct definition of nature per se, but several things around this subject matter are defined. And so we don't want to get out of track with what is under the law. David, or whomever, Liz, who made the point that the definition and how we think of and scientifically interpret nature now is very different than I imagine what was even put in the state statute even 5 years ago. It's probably very accurate. But we are writing a charter for San Juan County that still has to jive with state and federal definitions and so on. So I question if now's the time to do this, or if maybe we want to do a little bit, we've got Megan on board, if she could spend a week thinking about this. And at the end, when we're wrapping things up, if we see that this is something that makes sense, we could revisit it. And it's not that I'm not supportive of having an updated definition of nature. I love that San Juan County would maybe be the first to do that. I just want to make sure that not only is it consistent with state statute, but more importantly, it's consistent with the National Academy of Sciences, NOAA, and some others who have spent a lot of time thinking about this. Bill?
You're muted, Bill.
I'd like to move to table this motion so that it can be brought up later if it's deemed necessary.
Okay.
Who made the
Liz,
motion?
are we under this? No, there wasn't a motion to adopt this yet, or was there? I'm sorry.
Don't think so.
Okay. So the first motion on the, is there a second to that motion? Jane. Okay. So under discussion, Liz, you had your hand up. Yeah, Liz, you have your hand up. Can you guys hear
I
me?
think the value of having that comment in there is to help move us away from only seeing the value of nature as its aesthetic value, something pleasing for us to look at, or its economic value, to just begin to introduce language of the interdependence and the need for nature to remain a regenerative well-being. So I just don't know at this point where it goes, and since we're not doing recognizing the rights of nature, it just seems a dangling. But I will vote in favor of pausing the conversation while Megan does some research.
Okay. Any other comments, Maureen, please?
Just quickly, I think it's a beautiful definition and it should be included somewhere, somehow, in some way. So if we can push it aside for now, I'm good with that, but I'd vote for it.
Awesome. Other comments under discussion? If not, I'll call the question. Oh, Tom, please.
Well, I believe a motion to table is not debatable.
Oh, I think you are correct.
Tom, I couldn't hear you.
He said a motion to table is not debatable, and I think he is correct. We should be calling the question, but I will allow Olivia, you had your hand up. So let's go ahead and hear from Olivia. And then, as Thomas said, we'll move to the calling the question.
You can call the question. That seems proper.
Okay, wonderful. So all those in favor of tabling this and allowing Megan to do some research and coming back to us. Okay, looks like almost everybody, maybe everybody. Okay, any opposed? Any abstentions? Chair votes aye, motion carries. Wonderful, thank you all. So next subject, please.
May I acknowledge Maureen?
Liz, please go ahead.
Maureen, Bill, Kyle, and I spent 4.5 hours on a Sunday coming up with that. So thank you for appreciating it.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bob, why don't you go ahead and
All right.
And Bob, actually, before you go ahead, Olivia, I'm going to step away for just a minute. Can you take over for just a minute?
No problem.
Thank you.
Bob, go for it.
Yes, the next item is something that Kevin brought up and asked which committee would be the appropriate and or willing to take it up, and I volunteered our committee. And the subject matter was the budget and provisions for commissions down the way. It's not going to affect our operations or our commission, but it will affect the next one, the one after that, and the one after that. And it provides, it makes better provision for budget and other provisions. And here's what we're deleting the old section 9.22 and replacing it with what follows. And by the way, I can't just say that without you all being curious as to what 9.22 is. And so I'll just take a brief look at it. It's a very short, it has two subsections 1 and 2. It's entitled Expenditures. The county council shall provide to the CRC reasonable funds, facilities, services appropriate to an elected county agency. Provisions shall be made in the budget for the expenditures of the CRC during its scheduled term of office. 2, members of the CRC shall serve without salary, except that they shall be reimbursed for reasonable out-of-pocket expenses. Okay, that was the whole thing. And those words did not work for us. You will all recall how that came down and how we didn't have enough of this, enough of that, and we didn't have the right things in place, help in place. So here's what we're proposing to replace that with a new section 9.22 that reads as follows. 1, the county council shall provide to the CRC reasonable funds, staff, facilities, and services appropriate to an elected county agency. A, provisions shall be made in the budget for expenditures of the CRC during its scheduled term of office. Funds shall be provided to the CRC that are commensurate with the expenditures of the preceding CRC plus an allowance for inflation. Should the funds provided prove to be inadequate to the task, the commission may ask the county council for additional funding, which may be provided at the council's discretion. B, the county manager shall provide an adequate space in person or virtual space for the commission to conduct all of its meetings. The county manager shall also arrange for the technical support the CRC needs to do its business, including adequate staff support and communications between its members and with the public. Within the first week following the certification of the election of the CRC members, the county manager will meet with the new commissioner receiving the most votes and relate the details of the provisions made for the commission as set out above. 2, members of the CRC shall serve without salary, except that they shall be reimbursed for the reasonable out-of-pocket expenses. The findings to support this new proposed amendment are as follows. When the present HRC commission set up shop, it took weeks for the funding and logistics for the operation of the commission to be put into place. Given the immediacy of the task before it, the commission was handicapped in its efforts to hit the ground running and make the most of its time. With this new budgeting and provisions amendment, the commission will have in place what it needs to operate shortly after the certification of the election of the new commissioners.
Okay,
That's
if
it.
we could stop sharing.
And if
Okay,
it's appropriate, I'd like to make a motion at this time that proposed amendment be adopted by the full commission.
Is
Second.
there
Second.
a whole bunch of seconds? Let's give it to Bill.
Good.
So, Maureen, I know you were excited about that one. Okay, so under discussion, we have a motion by Bob and a second by Bill to adopt this as language within the charter. I see Anne Marie.
I just have a question about, we had certain fees that were assessed to us, like the internet and Zoom and things like that. Are those all kind of included in this comprehensive statement?
I think they would be. We have set out that they would provide those things to us. Nothing about us paying them to do it. I believe that's how it would have to read.
Okay.
There's a, well, go ahead, Dick, please.
I'm not sure it does read that way, Bob. And I think it's a good point. I mean, I like it. I think it's great, but that was a real sore spot.
Where should we put it back up and talk about Dick's point,
Yeah,
Mr.
please.
Chairman?
Yes, please.
Provisions shall be made in the budget for expenditures during the term of office. Let's see. The county manager shall provide an adequate space in person and/or virtual space for the commission to conduct all of its meetings. The county manager shall also arrange for the technical support the CRC needs to do its business, including adequate staff support, communications between the members and with the public. I think I see what you mean, Dick. The first sentence, we say the county manager shall provide, and the second sentence, we say the county manager shall arrange. If he's providing anything he provides to us, we wouldn't have to pay for, but is it possible that when he has the county, he or she has the obligation to arrange all of that, that he might send us a bill for it also?
If I can comment on that, first of all, C3PO is back, so if everybody could please mute, that'd be great. And then secondly, I do think there are some issues that I was as frustrated as everybody, maybe more so on the expenditure. That was definitely a surprise to us. However, in speaking to the auditor and to the county manager, I understand that that is somewhat the norm. I've actually heard from departments that they get stuck with a bill of like $80,000 and they just are told they're going to pay for it for their IT. I don't like that practice. I think there should be more dialogue, but I also understand that if that's the county's process, then we need to also think of ourselves as a department and have a similar process. I would hope that with this language, the county manager would understand that adequate funding means adequate funding. So with that $1,500, we should have been given an extra $1,500 instead of eating it, which we may do in the end. So, but at this point, I think the language is positive as is. Others, please.
Maureen's waving her hand.
Sorry, could we stop screen share for a moment? Thank you so much. Maureen, please.
I want to reiterate what I said a while back. We are not a department and we are not an agency. We are a commission. And as such, I think we might want to state in this, if it would be helpful, that the county may not assess us for IT or even publishing hearing notices, because that is a function of the commission and it's a function of the law. So we could be more specific, and I think that would help. But I think it's well written, but we could make it tighter.
David.
Since I can only speak once, I'm going to make a motion that supports what just said about the county shall not assess any expenses such as whatever Maureen said. I know it was, what were they, Maureen? It was the
IT services and the publishing of public hearing notices.
And then I would add legal services provided by the prosecuting attorney. I would add that too. That's
the prosecutor is not charged us for the work.
Well, let's put it in writing that they can't.
I didn't clarify, and I'm really sorry I'm not tracking as well as normal, and maybe you think I don't track at all, but do we have a motion on the table currently?
David just made one.
No, was there one before that? No.
Yes, there was a motion to accept this, and we were in discussion about it.
Yeah,
Mr. Chairman, I have a suggestion.
So I was just going to say, so David, there's a motion on the floor, so your motion is out of order. If you wanted to, yes, if you want to rephrase that as a friendly amendment, but then we need exact language too. I will go back.
Go ahead, Bob.
I have just drafted exact language. If we want to take up what the suggestion has been tossed around here, if the committee wished to, we could. And I am a little bit reticent to speak.
Lost you.
Muted, Bob.
If my committee has different opinions, they can voice it now. But here's what I would propose: where we after the A and the B section, that we add a C section that says the county government shall not assess the commission for any services or goods the county government supplies to the commission. Simple.
Yeah.
That do it?
Does it for me.
Dick?
Who is the second on the motion? Okay, so Bob, I don't think you can make a friendly amendment to your, if somebody.
Okay.
It was Bill. Bill made the second on that motion.
Yeah, thank you. And Bill has a comment, please.
He's
muted. I'll accept it as friendly to get discussion going, but you'll note that Mylene has asked to speak about the budget aspect, and I hope she gets a chance to speak.
Thank you. I see that. I'm going to allow the commission to speak to this first, but I also think that it would be valuable to hear her comments on that. And she could probably reiterate some of what I spoke to her about when this first came up. Olivia, I saw your hand.
Bill had the same comment that I was going to suggest.
Okay. Are there any other comments at this point in time? Auditor Henley, can you give us your perspective, please? You're muted, Mylene. You're still muted. No, we can't hear you, Mylene. No.
No, you're still muted. Try now.
Oh. No, we can't hear you, Mylene. No. I don't know what's going on. Mylene, do you want to try and call in on one of the phone numbers on the agenda that was sent out? Oh, wait, now we hear you.
Wait, we got
Okay,
it.
I changed speakers again. I've got all kinds of speakers around here. All right.
Mylene's rocking out.
Okay, just want to, I keep hearing the words that the commission is being charged. To me, that sounds like you as members are being charged expenses, which of course you are not. The county is paying for all of these expenses. When you say the commission has a budget and the commission is being charged, the county has a vast amount of money, and all of these monies have to be organized in certain ways, according to how the state auditor tells us expenses have to be organized. And there are codes for things like commissions like these. For the CRC, it happens to be 511.21, which nobody cares about except me, and nobody knows but me.
I care.
Yeah.
No matter what the charter says, the expenses have to be put into that pocket, which says these were expenses that the county incurred in having a CRC. Yes, there is a budget, and you can ask for more, and that's certainly reasonable, but it's a mistake to say that you shouldn't have to pay for this, because the expenses exist and they will be coded in this way, regardless of what the charter says. It's just a way of organizing expenditures. It is not personal. Nobody in the commission is being charged for anything.
Okay.
So I think it's great to say that you should have the money you need, but let's not get into, what you should be charged for.
Thank you, Mylene. I see Dick's hand and then Anne Marie Shanks.
How about responding to what Mylene said? What if we take the language that's been put forward and all of that language would say over and above any charges by the county for IT services or printing or publishing? So we get an adequate budget on top of that stuff. I mean, if we want to, and the only reason I raise that is because we didn't know it. 10 years from now, the next commission is probably not going to know it.
I have to, was it Maureen or Anne Marie? Sorry.
So I'm in sync with Dick, and I was just going to use the word allocated, that spinning off of what Mylene said, would it be clearer to say that the commission be allocated revenue or dollars that cover these things?
That's good.
It's just a,
Patty, can you share the screen again, please? What if it said expenditures of the preceding CRC and any business allocations plus allowance for inflation?
Including.
Now, and commensurate with the preceding at least, and now we're editing by committee, but I do think allocated is appropriate. What I was going to say earlier is that I think that I think this language is really good, and maybe adding one thing. The issue wasn't that we were charged, it was that we were surprised by the charge. And so what we need is for the allocation that we are given to cover our needs as well as any county expenses that will be associated with the CRC. And I think that's what Mylene was saying too. I see Olivia's hand.
I put it down.
Okay. Do we want to try and, does anybody have a specific suggestion on this, or do we want to adopt it as is, or do we want to bring it back with a little wordsmithing?
I'm writing something right now,
Okay.
including my charges.
Can we stop screen share, please, Patty?
Just to the charter, to the CRC. by the county government. Okay.
I see your hand, Patty. I'll call on you next.
Okay, here's what I jotted down. I think kind of in keeping with what Kevin was saying, funds shall be provided to the CRC that are commensurate with the expenditures of the preceding CRC, including any charges assessed to the CRC by the city government, plus an allowance for inflation.
County.
Simple? County, did I say city?
Yeah.
County government, yes.
So I have Patty and then Tom. Patty, you're muted.
I'm just wondering if we need this, if our budget ends up including enough money to cover the extra money, the $1,500 we were charged, it will then be part of the official budget. And for the next time, they will have that to go on.
Yep. Tom, please.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I hate to go backwards, but I like the words of the current 9.22 item 1. It just says that council shall provide to the CRC reasonable funds, facilities, and services appropriate to an elected county agency. Provision shall be made in the budget for expenditures of the CRC during its scheduled term of office. And all this talk about that we got to have a budget doesn't make any sense. You know, we send them the bills and they pay them, or they get the bills and they pay them. So I don't see what the big deal is.
Thank you, Commissioner Starr. Others? Okay, there's a motion on the table to adopt the language as is. The maker of the motion has proposed language that somebody else could offer as a friendly amendment. I will say that I kind of agree with Patty that the existing language says that we will receive adequate funding. Adequate for me, I can't remember if that's the exact word, but adequate for me would mean that it would cover our IT expenses and such as well. Hopefully some of us are here in 10 years and we can remind them. I don't know. David, please. And then Maureen.
Thank you for letting me speak the second time. I still think we've ignored Mylene's comment to that third point that's in there. I can't see it now because it's disappeared, but are we taking that out? The one about assessed, the champion shall not be assessed.
Well, that wasn't in the motion. I don't believe that was an addition that was being discussed. I'm sorry, Bob, please.
Actually, I think that there was a request for us to adopt it as a friendly amendment. We skipped over me and went directly to Bill as the second, and he accepted it. And now couldn't we just get rid of it if that's what we want to do? Because it seems to me that we listened to what Mylene had to say and realized that instead of going in that direction, we ought to do kind of what you were saying, Kevin, which is add something, if we're going to add anything at all, add including the changes assessed to the county. You know, if we're going to add anything at all, we could just keep it like it is.
I have a suggestion, if I may, which would be we adopt the language that's been proposed. We have a motion and a second on the floor for that. And then we will still have to have a final vote where we adopt everything in a couple weeks. And Megan can help us, and Catherine and others, and we can have more conversations with Mylene and see if there's any issue. But I feel like this existing language does what we want, but we can find out for sure and amend it in the next couple weeks if we have to.
I'm good with that.
Kevin, do you mean the language that we brought into the commission today?
Yes.
not with any of the other stuff. Okay.
Without a friendly amendment. So technically you, well, there's still a question of if you can do the friendly amendment, but Bill would
Well,
have.
I'll stand up as the person who made it and reject the friendly amendment. That way it's not on there.
Withdraw it.
So yeah, withdraw. Thank you, whoever said that, Paul. The motion on the floor with a second is to adopt the language as submitted by the subcommittee. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
I see Tom Starr opposing and Patty Garcia opposing. Any abstentions?
No,
Oh, sorry, Patty.
I'm not opposing.
Oh, I was wondering.
I'm just slow. My computer's slow.
Okay, so Patty, you were in favor. I want to clarify. So Tom Starr
Yes.
is the only opposition, and then any abstentions? I see Paul and Bill as abstentions. Okay, the motion carries. Okay, next subject, please.
All right, we had 4 subjects to deal with. The fourth one, we are not prepared to present anything today. We struggled monumentally for many weeks to do that. We had many additional meetings on weekends. We had subcommittees that were formed to look at various parts of this, and were unable to come up with what we wanted. And then sort of at the last minute when we were working on it, we got down to one paragraph about restorative justice where we were going to try and tell the council what to do about this. We sent that to Randy and said, what about this telling the council? And he said, well, you can't really do that. And by the way, you also can't have any rights of nature, which we had not asked him about, but obviously his counsel was valuable to us, and it was disturbing, upsetting to us. And we worked on the idea of it at an extra meeting we had last Sunday, and realized that that it looked like we were going to have to let go of that and work instead on something like work on a community, a declaration of community values, which is what we are working on now. I have appointed a subcommittee made up of Patty Garcia as the chairman and Sharon Abreu, and they will be working on that. And they will be sending out the result of their efforts to the rest of the committee. And next Tuesday at our regularly scheduled meeting, we will be considering that and adopting it at that time.
Bob?
Yes.
So all of that, sorry to cut you off, but all of that is to say that you will be coming back to us with a more defined recommendation and for that it's on hold. Okay,
Yes, sir. Yes,
let's
sir.
move on. Thank you, Bob.
And that's it. That was our fourth and final one.
Dick, I see your hand, Richard.
Yeah, just quickly, can I ask Bob if it's at all possible for you and the committee, give us a document at least a day ahead?
We'll certainly try to do that. You mean the entire commission after we have, well, here's our problem. We meet on Tuesday. It will be at the earliest, we will be picking it up on Tuesday, and then this meeting is on Wednesday. What I can do, Dick, is I can try and get that out, and we'll get that out to everybody within the hour after our meeting ends at noon on Tuesday. That's the best I can do.
Bob, I think that's excellent. Is if you're subcommittee of your subcommittee, if you were to share, that with the full commission, as soon as you have spit it out, with the recognition that the process subcommittee still needs to review it, but then it allows the commission to start looking at it as well. I think that would be excellent. I saw Jane's hand.
Yeah, I just wanted to remind everybody that we had agreed that documents would be sent out, the 2 days prior, at the end of the business day, 2 days prior to their being presented. So, so that commissioners would have sufficient time and wouldn't have an excuse to say, I didn't have enough time to read it. So, so just, that's what we had agreed to a few weeks ago.
Bob, I don't know if you have a need to comment. I think that I will just say that the process committee was trying their best, and everybody is, but Jane's point is very well made. So we will try to do that. I think the recommendation that Bob just had of sending it out as soon as his subcommittee defines it so that everybody can start reviewing it with the understanding that it's not a subcommittee recommendation at that point, but it allows us to review it, would seem to address the problem that we have before us with the meeting the same day. Subcommittee meeting the same day. I'm not even following what I'm saying. Did you guys follow? Okay, Olivia's shaking her head yes, so I think we're good. Can we move on?
Yes.
Okay. I think that is it for the process committee at this point.
Yes, sir.
We've made some good progress. I would like to immediately turn it over to the governance committee.
Thank you, Chairman Ranker. Today we're gonna have Commissioner Janet Brunel present for us the proposal for sustainable tourism. That's
And
okay.
ironically, that whole 2-day thing, we just finished our recommendations literally at 3:30 today. So I did send it out. No one has had a chance probably to read it. So this may be the first time you're getting to see it. And I heartily apologize for that. So now I will screen share, hopefully the right document. Let's see if this is the right one. Yes. Okay, so and governments, which is the most charming and fun committee of all the committees. Anyone on governance who wants to weigh in, please jump in. So one of the things that governance looked at, and mainly because of the heightened and growing anxiety among residents that all of us on governance were hearing about, was going to be possibly a recommendation to the CRC for a charter amendment to move tourism promotion from an external marketing entity, which currently is now the San Juan Visitors Bureau, to an internal government department. And we discussed it. And the reason this is so important is that given, and I'm just going to read this, given the fragility of our environment and ecosystem, the public needs to be made more aware of plans for tourism in the county and have a voice in that planning. Residents have strong views about the impact of tourism on our islands and want to have a voice in the stewardship of our county with regard to tourism. So that was our kind of our basis of consideration. After discussing it, we ultimately decided that this is the responsibility of the San Juan County Council to address tourism promotion. It's a legislative decision, and the county council is ultimately accountable to the voters and residents of the islands, and they must deal with this pressing need to balance support for the quality of life preferences and the needs of its constituents with concerns for the local economy. So we're coming to you, the CRC, not with a charter amendment, but we would like to make some recommendations to the county council. And hopefully you will support. We have 3 recommendations we would like to make. The first recommendation is regarding a tourism, and if anyone has any questions, just jump in. The first recommendation we would like to make to the county council is regarding a tourism management plan. So since 2014, the San Juan Visitors Bureau has been asking the county council to come up with a management plan for tourism. In 2020, they put in a lodging tax grant so that this could actually happen. And the grant for $100,000 was approved by LTAC, which is the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee, and was approved by the county council. They were just about to start with the management plan when COVID hit, so everything just kind of cratered, and they're just getting it back on track as we speak. And they're putting out a request for proposals for a consultant or agency to create the process for the management plan and the actual plan. So our recommendations to the county council, with your support, if you agree with this, is that we hope that the scope of any plan will take into account feedback from a broad spectrum of stakeholders, not just business and tourist interests. And I think actually in the proposal that was given to LTAC for the grant money, they did talk about having a broad spectrum of stakeholders. So this should not be controversial, but we just want to reinforce to the county council that this really needs to take into account residents of the county. We would also recommend to the county council that the plan should develop a baseline of data from which metrics can be created. The county needs to know how tourism affects the islands. What are the specific impacts to our economy, pro and con? What are the impacts to natural resources in the natural world? For example, what is the impact on freshwater resources? What are the impacts to our infrastructure? How much waste is generated by tourists? This data is actually essential in terms of assessing the impact of any tourism in our islands. So the governance committees feel strongly that the recommendations and conclusions of the tourism management plan should define the extent of promotion by the county. In other words, once this plan is done, this should inform the county council about how it should move forward with promotion of tourism. So that's recommendation 1. I don't know if we want to go through all of them or go one at a time, or.
I would like to suggest that for this subject matter, maybe cover all of them, and then
Great.
we're going to have to read just so people see how they flow
Great.
together.
Okay.
And so I'll hold off questions for now, and then we'll go back and we'll vote on them one at a time.
Right. So first part is a recommendation to the county council about tourism management. The second recommendation is to move the tourism promotion from an outside entity into the county council. We are actually recommending to the county council. We're not asking for a charter amendment. The reason being, it doesn't seem prudent or reasonable to use lodging tax money to develop a plan and then hand it over to an outside entity with little oversight by the county. The county needs to be responsible for implementing the tourism plan. To that end, we recommend that while developing the tourism management plan, the county also takes the opportunity to develop a plan to move tourism promotion management away from a contracted organization into the county government. So those two things could be happening simultaneously. Currently, the contract with the Visitors Bureau expires in December, 2022. So this will provide more than a year to develop a tourism management plan and transition the management of tourism promotion into county government. Our last point about this is, to the extent possible, the county council will employ existing professional staff who work in the county in the tourism promotion field into the new internal county department. Again, this is a recommendation to the county council. Our third recommendation has to do with the use of lodging tax funds. Again, it's just a recommendation that the county council should increase the spending of lodging tax funds towards seasonal worker housing, which is critical. And I'm sure you're hearing about it on all the islands about the lack of worker housing. And secondly, increase the spending of lodging tax funds to protect and maintain the existing tourism infrastructure, for example, county parks. And then there are some footnotes, and you can read that later, because I know you'll take this to bed with you and just read it over and over again, this recommendation. So again, we're looking to you to support these recommendations to the county council. We are not looking to you to the CRC for a charter amendment.
Okay, I see. Can we stop sharing? And then we're going to go back and take them one at a time, but let's have general comments first, and then we're going to go one at a time. So I see Bob first.
Janet, I'm interested to know why it isn't being recommended as a charter amendment.
Again, we went back and forth on this, but really the reality is this is the responsibility of the county government to deal with this, and legislatively they can make this decision. We decided, and please governance people weigh in on this. Kevin?
Yeah, I would just say that in state statute, it's defined and in conversations with our prosecutor as well, that it's the action of the money, delegating the money to the contracts. It wasn't technically the CRC could create, we could say we want an internal office of sustainable tourism. That is something that we could put forward. The addition to that was proposed early on by some members was that, and the money that's going to the business association that is responsible for tourism at this point, the Visitors Bureau, that money would be directed to fund that entity. And what we found is that in statute, we do not have the authority to direct those funds. That is purely a legislative function. And so that the county council has to direct those funds. So then in discussion, and Janet put a lot of time and thought into this, it came back of, instead of trying to create the new internal department, why not make all of this a recommendation to the county council with strong language saying, we expect you to consider this. And I will say that it is extreme, it is not unheard of, but it is very unusual for county legislative bodies to not take action, at least in some way, shape, or form, on recommendations from the Charter Review Commission. So I would hope the same would be true in San Juan County, but we haven't tested that. So the idea is to make this a recommendation to the county council to let them deal with this matter.
I understand. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I see David. Can we stop sharing for just a moment? And
Oh,
we'll-
sorry, that's me. That you wanted me to stop.
Can we do,
Sorry.
let's do general comments, and then we want to go back to 1, 2, 3 and actually take action on these. So David, please.
I think another reason, Bob, is that the tourism management plan process is going to hopefully start up again here soon, probably well before any amendment of the charter goes to the voters in November. And so by putting this in the hands of the county council immediately as a recommendation, they can then take action immediately to implement this and make it fit into their deliberations over the management plan and the scope of the management plan. So I think it makes sense to do that, to get them to act ahead of time, not wait until November. And then the other thing Kevin mentions about allocation of funds, he's absolutely right. The state laws, I understand it, for tourism tax money can be used for affordable housing or seasonal housing for workers. And we spent a lot of time talking about we need to do more of that and less of promotion. But again, we can't dictate that, as Kevin said. So the lodging tax discussion had a lot to do with it. Also, I think, at least my reasoning of why we wanted to go with a recommendation rather than an amendment.
Other general comments, and if not, we'll go to voting on the 3 recommendations before us. No? Okay, Bill, please.
I think we need to, because of timing, we need to understand that what is being proposed is going to run in parallel with a tourist management plan. It's also going to be running along beside it. It seems to me that what is being proposed is something that ought to be integrated into that process to be considered. It's to just not only how tourism will be handled, but literally how it will be handled. This is a proposal toward that end, and I expect that the tourism management plan would have the same aim. It seems to me that as each being part of the other would probably work more effectively and more efficiently.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just gonna say, Bill, and I think that's one, to go back to David's point, that's one of the reasons we're trying to get this recommendation in front of the county council as soon as possible, because they're starting to put out the RFPs for this in terms of creating the plan. So
Jane?
Just to follow on, Mr. Chair, from what Janet said, I mean, that was actually something that we discussed this morning at 6:45 when we had a quick scrum, was the idea, and for the record, Dick was still in his bathrobe, but never mind, that's TMI. No, but yeah, Bill, we did, that was something we talked about, was that that this recommendation be part of that management plan exercise, so that the county is not all of a sudden landed with this task of reintegrating it, if this is what the direction it goes in, but it can be contemplated as part of the future of planning for tourism in the county.
Maureen, please.
I'm going to say very briefly, I remember back when, I mean, the fact that we don't have a real tourism management plan is criminal, because I remember when Alan Lichter had the Pagini paper that he was trying to get the council, to look at and read, because it was about Nantucket and what happened there, and the analogies were clear, and they just kept sliding it around and never did much with it. So I'm in favor of a tourism plan.
So to give kudos to the Visitors Bureau, they've been pushing for this since 2014, and it just
certainly have.
finally is happening. So it's a good thing. And really, the only in terms of our recommendation, in terms of we're recommending that we support the tourism management plan, but also what is not in the original LTAC grant was getting actual baseline data about fundamental infrastructure and impacts of tourism in the county. So we're hoping that could be a recommendation that can enhance the management plan.
I have a general comment, and then I'd like to suggest a process going forward. The general comment is, I think you are all optimistic if you think that the management plan will be done by November. Sorry, having worked for this county for a long time, and you're going to have, that's going to be advertised. You're going to place somebody maybe in the next 30 days if we're fortunate, and then they begin work. With exhaustive work.
I think we said that it would be done by kind of coalescing with the end of the if it's brought in, it would be December 2022. We're hoping that both things are done by.
All I was saying is there was comments made that this would be parallel, like over the next month. And I just think that's optimistic. The other thing I was going to say, though, is what I'd like to suggest is we go back to screen share and we vote 1, 2, 3 up or down on the recommendations from the subcommittee. If folks are okay with that, I'd like to do that. Anne Marie.
Just a quick one. I think this is such a significant issue that we really need to make sure that the public is aware that the commission is doing this, because this is a real concern in our communities.
Yes, I totally agree. We have 36 people here this evening, so there's 18 of us on the commission. The rest are public or county electeds who participate, and thank you for that. I wish we had more public participation, frankly. I hope that we will have significant public participation at our town halls when we present this the very first week of June.
Kevin, can I ask a question? Even if this isn't a charter amendment, will you be presenting at the town hall the recommendations as well?
You will be, yes.
I will be?
Yeah, sure.
Wait.
We're going to talk about that in later, not on this call, but yes, this will be presented. I think that what we need to do at the town hall is not just present our recommendations that would be propositions for the ballot, but we would also present the recommendations that we are putting forward for the county council or other electeds to consider. And I think that's very important to underscore Anne Marie's point.
Okay.
Okay, I'd like to try and vote on these, if that's okay. Is that all right with folks?
Yeah.
So the first recommendation, Janet, could you read that again, and then I'll stop.
The first one is just in support of the tourism management plan, and there's just 2 points to that. One, well, actually there are 3. 2 points. The 3 points are that the scope of any plan take into account feedback from a broad spectrum of stakeholders, not just business/tourist interests. And secondly, developing a baseline from which metrics can be created, kind of the impact of tourism within the county. And that the last point is that we feel strongly that the recommendations and conclusions of this tourism management plan should help define the extent of promotion by the county.
Okay, everybody clear with that? Can we stop screen share, please?
Can I move its adoption?
Okay, we have Bob moving, and do we have a second? I see
Second.
David Dellendorf seconding. So any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Okay, any opposed? Let's see, none opposed. Any abstentions? Any abstentions? Chair votes aye, motion passes. Excellent. Can we go to the next one, please, Janet?
The next is the recommendation to the county council to move tourism promotion into county government, moving it from an external entity into the county government, and that the development of the management plan and the transition plan for this happen concurrently. And that the last point is, to the extent possible, the council will employ existing professional staff into this new department.
Excellent. Okay, can we stop screen share, please? Any questions on this? If not, I would accept a motion. Liz, do you have a question, or you want to put a motion on the floor?
I had a question for Jane. Did you all touch bases with staff regarding this?
Yes, Deb Hoskinson has been included in at least 2 meetings, and she has sent us our thoughts in the last like week or so. Unfortunately, things were changing so much that every time she brought up a point, it was like, well, we've already changed that, wait for the next iteration. So but yes, she has seen this, and yes, they have been informed.
And in alignment with what you're proposing?
I pretty much. I mean, I think their contention is that they're going to work with the county council no matter what. So whether they're inside or outside, they're completely in support of the management plan. So whatever comes out of that, they will be taking it, whether the county council decides they're inside or outside of the county government.
I would move to adopt.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Maureen has her hand up, and then Olivia.
No, I don't have my hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, Olivia.
You're seeing double again.
Oh, no, I think people were getting ready to vote on it. Is there any further discussion? We have a motion on the floor to make a recommendation to the county council that this become an internal entity within San Juan County.
I won't comment.
Okay, all those in favor? Okay, any opposed? I see Maureen and Paul and Bill in opposition. Is there anybody else in opposition? Any abstentions? Okay, so the motion carries. Sorry, chair votes aye. The motion carries. And so that will be a recommendation to the county council. Can we please go to the third one?
And the third one is a recommendation in terms of the use of lodging tax funds, that the county council should increase the spending of lodging tax funds towards seasonal worker housing and the protection and maintenance of existing tourism infrastructure, i.e. county parks.
Okay, can we stop screen share, please? Any comments on this before we accept a motion? Any comments? Okay, I would accept a motion.
Motion to approve?
Okay, second. Okay, Patty seconded. Olivia put the motion on the floor. The motion is to, Janet, I'm sorry, what's the motion?
To increase lodging tax money towards seasonal worker housing and for protection and maintenance of infrastructure within the county, for example, county parks.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? I see Tom Starr and Paul Dossett. Bill, are you opposed?
I'm
No.
abstaining.
Okay, so any abstain?
I abstain.
I see Bill and Bob abstain. Both our attorneys abstain. Chair votes aye, motion carries. Okay. Janet, is that it for the governance committee?
That is it. I don't think we have any, Dave, I'll pass it back to you. I don't think we have any outstanding issues.
No, not at this time. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to thank the governance committee and the process committee for their work. I know a lot of hours went into these. And unfortunately for all of us, this is just the beginning. Remember that us finalizing recommendations is only the very first step. Now we have to have a lot more conversations with the public and others to make sure we got it right. And then hopefully they all go to the ballot and the public loves them. We have the next agenda item is review of approved motions. Olivia, can I just pass that to you?
Sure, yeah. The other thing we could do is talk about elected versus appointed for the county manager position. Mike is here.
Yeah, since we have not advertised that as being on the agenda for this evening, I do not want to do that. I want to make sure that subjects like that are advertised appropriately so the public or so that Mike can be prepared. I'm sure Mike is actually prepared, but so that the public may have questions or comments as well. And so I do want to prioritize that though. It's a very important item, and there was a number of people who voted to revisit it, and I'm curious what your thoughts are, but not now. So Olivia and I will schedule that, and if not next week, in the following, but we'll get it up quickly in the next couple of meetings. And Mike will of course give you ample notice as soon as that's decided. Why don't we open it up for public comment at this point in time, if that's okay. Jane, you have a comment?
Just a question, Mr. Chair. Just looking at the agenda for tomorrow, we did have that item on the agenda tomorrow, or does it say, yeah, it's the discussion of electing the county manager. Yeah, so we're talking about that tomorrow,
Yeah,
correct?
sorry, I'd forgotten that. You are correct. That will
Okay,
be on the
okay.
agenda tomorrow morning, or when
Okay.
we do that.
And one other clarification that for the agenda tomorrow, it says possible follow-up to climate and environment May 12 report, but it sounds like that's being kicked into next week as well.
That will be kicked into next week. Under
Okay.
new business, we may move some things around, which we are allowed to do under the agenda.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. Sorry.
No, that's fine. Thank you for the clarification. And I have a note here. Oh, thank you very much. So let's go to public comment. Oh, I'm sorry, Liz, please.
Very briefly, there's no, on the Outlook calendar, there's no meeting scheduled for tomorrow morning. So I'm assuming we're all
Oh.
meeting, but it's not there.
Yes, we have
That's correct.
Yeah, so we apologize if that's not on the calendar. It's been advertised, so we're okay, but we need to put that on the calendar. So
It's there.
It's
I'll send it out again, but it's there.
okay.
Well,
Okay, so there's a little.
It's not on my calendar.
Nor mine.
So
We were
I'll let
hiding
it go
it
with
from
that.
you. We were hiding it from you because we didn't want you there.
Yeah.
Process people.
Good idea. Hide it
No,
from
you
me.
weren't supposed to tell them that.
I have.
I'll have a good excuse.
Yeah. So, public comment. Are there any members of the public who would like to comment? If so, please you take your video. If you are able, turn on your video and unmute yourself and let me know. And I'm toggling between a couple screens here. So I'm just trying to go back and forth. Any members of the public? Okay, I am trying to find, I got a letter. I got a letter from some school children on San Juan Island, and they asked that I share that. So if folks don't mind, I'd like to find that. No, it was here.
Olivia, while Kevin is looking for that, I don't show it on my calendar this Thursday than it is the following, but it's not after that. So it's on my calendar, it's like every other week. And I'll just look for your link, so no concern.
That's what I've got on mine.
It's not on mine either.
Last week, none this week, and then there is one next week on the calendar.
Me too.
Calendar against Lopez.
Hey,
That's what it is.
If commissioners will allow me, we received
Conspiracy.
this
Kevin.
letter. We received this letter from two students on San Juan. It says, to the San Juan County Charter Committee, we are Ayla Ridwan and Ray Lee Minikin, two high school students on San Juan Island. We are writing to you in support of making any changes to the San Juan County Charter in favor of taking climate action and sustainability serious for our future and generations to come. This is important to the health of the islands, the waters around us, and the people who live here. We hope that you will support climate action in your upcoming decisions. Thank you. Ayla Ridwan and Rayleigh Minikin.
Great.
Sweet, very sweet.
And we will post that as well. Any other, I don't see any public comments. Am I missing? David, hang on, we're still under public comment. Randy, I see you. Just give me 1 second. I don't see any public wishing to speak, so I'd like to call on our prosecuting attorney. Randy, thank you again for being here. Oh, Alexandra, did you want to speak?
Thank you. I just wanted to say something quickly. Alexandra Gayak, Orcas Island, relative to the definition of nature, that I spent a lot of time thinking about what nature means, and a lot of people really think of it more in terms of, you know, going out in the woods, a pretty place to go, and don't really recognize the system that it is that supports all of life. And I would hope that you would consider just niggling the what's the word? Well, anyway, adjusting the definition just slightly to say the system instead of a system. And somewhere in there say something about life, because it says it's self-regulating and all that, but never mentions plants, animals, any living being. But, maybe just adding that supports all of life at the end of it would solve the problem. But thanks all for all your work on everything. Thanks. That's all I've got to say right now.
Thank you very much. I don't see any other public. If not, I would like to call in our prosecuting attorney. And again, Randy, thank you for participation and for your thoughtful and thought-provoking comments to us over the last weeks.
Well, this is a personal little essay to you, connection with the Rights of Nature Initiative. I just want to reflect back to 1978 when I was attending Utah State University. And in that year, the year next, one of my professors was Vern Shanks, the spouse of Anne Marie Shanks. But this has to do with another class I was taking in environmental law. And one of the required readings was the essay by Christopher Stone that is the foundation for the Rights of Nature Initiative. And whenever you hear about rights of nature, you hear about that. And since 1978, I've carried a few books around from my time in my undergraduate school. One of them is this book. And it's Christopher Stone's essay on the rights of nature. And it has the essay put in that he wrote to the law review at Southern California University, together with the decision in Sierra Club versus Morton, in which Justice Douglas gave him honor. And by the second paragraph of his decision in a dissent, in which he referred to this essay by Christopher Stone. So why did I carry this around? I just took it right off the back of behind me, right here. I carry this, it's close to me as anything. I have this book too, Managing the Commons by Garrett Hardin and John Bodden. And I guarantee you, Vern Shanks knows who John Bodden is because he was my professor at Utah State University too. And Garrett Hardin is this master of this tragedy of the commons thought. And so I want to let you know that you have a person who is your lawyer, who has been steeped in this as an environmental lawyer from the very beginning. And I'm giving you your advice with this as my foundation, together with 35 years of legal experience. So I understand from listening to you, Bob, and that your group has struggled with what I've said and the advice I've given. And I want to let you know that my foundation is sympathetic, but my commitment to my oath and to the law is also there. And that's where I'm coming from. And that's what I'm impressing upon you, of course, because you also took an oath. The decision of Justice Douglas was a dissent. And I expected someday that dissent would come around, be a majority decision. It is not. It is not the law. Dissents do not make the law. And so I've been advising you on what the law is today. Thank you.
Randy, thank you. That's awesome in the truest sense of the word, frankly. I actually have the book on my shelf right over here. I'm excited that you have that. Bob, please.
I just want to respond briefly to Randy. I cannot tell you how important his advice was to us. It didn't have to be advice that warmed the cockles of our hearts. It's what it is. And that's how we recognized it and took it. And I think Randy may have saved us from some problems down the way, as difficult as it was to read those words. And so I personally thank him very much for that.
Awesome. Okay. Any other, I just want to make sure, are there any other members of the public that wanted to speak? Okay. So we're just gonna have some closing comments here. Just because we're not at the top of the hour doesn't mean we have to keep talking. I just want to throw that out there. I will also throw out there that my fever is now 101.6. So I'm gonna fade any second. So David, please.
I think that's a wonderful letter from Ray Lee and the other young lady. I can't remember their names. They actually were a part of the organization of high school students that marched a year or two ago at Spring Street in Friday Harbor and they have been active in this issue for a long time. I think it would be nice, Randy, if we were to respond to them in some way, maybe attach the video of our discussion on the environmental recommendation or amendment, just to give them some encouragement that young people are being listened to.
Well, that is-
Go ahead. I have second point.
Hey, I don't know if that's an issue for our prosecutor, but we have had a discussion that it's important for us to recognize all public comment. So I do think that sending notes to folks who comment, or at least following up with them, which has happened by phone quite a bit, or by message or messenger, is really important. In this case, I think it would be really valuable to just send a note from the Charter Review Commission, just saying thank you for your comments. But I also want to recognize that there's a lot of people who have commented to us, and we have to be consistent. I see Liz. Oh, David,
I want to echo.
Liz, I'm sorry.
I
David,
want to-
I don't think you were finished.
Well, I had a process question, but it can wait until the end. Let other people speak.
Okay. Okay, great. Liz, please.
I wanted to underscore what was being said about these young women who have written to us. And I wanted to bump the conversation up and beyond that it's sweet and it's lovely. And we move into really hearing the power of what they're saying to us, that we move it out of, a lightness, a gentleness, and really hear the urgency in their voices. And anyway, I just couldn't let that go unsaid. It's not sweet what they said. It's not, I mean, I understand that language and I respect it, but I think what these young women are saying to us is much more powerful message. And I don't want it to be diminished in any way.
Totally.
Thanks you all.
Good point.
I saw another hand before Patty, Jane, and then Patty.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, sort of following on from Liz's comment and touching back on a comment you made earlier, Mr. Chair. I mean, I think, and it's actually something that Alexandra Gayak sort of challenged us on in a recent committee meeting, I think. But I mean, as we move into the town hall stage for June 1 and June 2, I mean, I think we would be doing our best to reach out to our constituents and share with them the opportunity they'll have to hear where things are at, to ask questions. And personally, I'm going to be reaching out to the Lopez Island K-12 school and raising to the attention of both principals and the superintendent that for kids that are interested in listening and participating in that town hall and asking questions, they should pursue that opportunity to do so as part of their civics opportunity. And so I think we could do well to just generally communicate with our constituents about these town hall events to get more public participation. And I appreciate what Liz just said. I also just wanted to note, Mr. Chair, that Karen Parker in a chat responded to the prosecuting attorney's comment, and she is making a note that the logic in his refuting the legitimacy of rights of nature was something that was that's sort of done behind closed doors. It might be worthwhile, Mr. Chair, for you to clarify about sort of attorney-client privilege that can be maintained in some form with this commission and the PA. But Mr. Chair, I thought you might want to just speak to that comment because it is a public comment that's appeared in the chat. So I just thought we should recognize it.
Okay. Was it Patty?
I just wanted to emphasize, we have been listening to the public. They have come to the process meetings, and your comments and your emails, they are really being taken seriously. So I just want that to be stated.
Okay. Jane, to your point, I'm sorry, I don't even have the bandwidth at this point. So I would like us to close up. I think you make a good point. I think Karen Parker makes a really good point. But I think that's an additional discussion that frankly would take us past the next 14 minutes that we have even on our proposed agenda. or wherever we are. Dick?
I move we adjourn and let Kevin go to bed or Upchuck or do whatever he needs to do.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor of adjourning,
Discussion, is there any,
please?
are we doing discussion?
Yeah,
Kevin,
sure.
I know you're hanging by a thread, but public comments, we've called for it early, and I'm happy to stay if anybody else does. Kevin, I know you need to,
No.
but
You are absolutely.
we're back up to 3 pages of
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. So generally we do the public comments in 3 minutes. So we will pause if folks don't mind on the motion to adjourn, if you could withdraw your motion and we pause for 3 minutes, just to make sure that if anybody was coming in for that, I think that's very appropriate point. Very well made, Liz. Dick?
Well, just a technicality. If we don't put times on the agenda, we're not obliged to do that. I don't object to doing it, but we don't have to.
You are correct. You are correct procedurally, and it's one of the reasons there's not times on the agenda. But I do think that consistently we have done our public comment 10 minutes before close of business, and so what I'd like to suggest is we wait now 2 minutes and see if there are any other members of the public who care to speak. And I think I saw some other hands. I think I saw Bob, and then some.
Since we're at this kind of a point where it doesn't necessarily have to zone in on what we've discussed today, I do have something to let the folks know about that does very much impact our environment and climate change. If they didn't know about this, and I'll only take 2 minutes if you think it's way off the beam. I'll only take.
Yeah, Bob, you'll take 1 minute and 30 seconds. But
there you go, 1 minute and 30 seconds.
I just wanted to say that Bill made a point, and you are absolutely correct, Bill, that a motion to adjourn is not debatable. I'm allowing a little flexibility just because not everybody on the commission or the public is familiar with the rules, even though we are operating under them. So if there's any concerns with that, we will go ahead and adjourn. I'd like to go ahead and pause like we've said. Okay, Bob, please.
I don't need to speak at all. I thought you were looking for filler, and that's what I got.
I don't need we
I want to tell you about something. I already told my committee about it earlier today, and you may have someone.
Go ahead, Bob.
Okay, you may have run into this, but the Ford Motor Company has announced today that they're bringing out a new F-150 truck, which is the top selling vehicle in the world, right? Bring out a new truck. I saw a demonstration that it pulled 1 million pounds of it has 10 railroad cars full of 42 trucks. It does 0 to 60 in 4.6 seconds. It has a generator that you can back up to your house when the electricity goes down and run your house by. And it is the most powerful, fastest, strongest truck they've ever put out, and it's all electric. This is going to change the world as far as the fact that they were able to do this. It's going to change the world as far as automotive, use of fossil fuels. I mean, it is unbelievable.
I would also encourage folks to look at the General Motors Hummer truck, which is 1,100 horsepower and just as insane. I think it's there for electric vehicles, which is awesome. We should all get rid of our Subarus that only get 15 miles to the gallon. Okay, so we're going to go into public comment, and I see that Karen Parker has turned on her video. Karen, would you like to speak to us?
Hi, I don't want to keep you very long, especially you, Kevin, because I can just see this as wearing on you, but thank you everyone for showing up and demonstrating what looks very much like the sacrifice of public service. You're all very commendable for the jobs that you do. I haven't been privy to, by any means, all of the discussions that you've had regarding the movements with nature and conservation and all that we have in common here for our quality of life. But I did think that it was appropriate to follow up further with Esquire Gaylord regarding wanting to see when he could share the transparency of his thinking regarding saying that rights of nature are not legitimate. I think at this point, since this is a committee that should be open for being fully transparent for the public, it's more than just saying, well, trust me, I'm an attorney. I'm a physician myself. I don't ever say to my patients, trust me, I'm a doctor. I say, here are the precedents for my thinking. Here are the medical citations, and here's my interpretation thereof. And then also, just because it's apropos regarding Christopher Stone, who he invoked today, that man just passed away a few hours ago. So I don't know if he was trying to channel his presence, but that great person has just passed away. So I'm just acknowledging him. Finally, since there was a topic of sustainable tourism, I think that this whole concept regarding the Office of Climate and the Environment is completely synergistic with sustainable tourism. And we have multiple models that you could look to, specifically Switzerland and Costa Rica. I've spent both time in these countries pursuing conservation and ecotourism academically. And I think that you can just see from there, Costa Rica chose, they were one of the leaders after Switzerland, choosing to protect their resources, even though it hadn't been done in a great scale before, particularly in a developing country. In Switzerland, by any means, if anyone's ever gone there, you can see that the vast majority of resources were conserved for future generations, and people live a very high quality of life. So it may seem that we're, diametrically opposed by labor and economy versus conservation, but in fact, I think if with some creative thinking and intelligence, we can realize that we're all in this together. So I'll be able to take my comments next week as well, out of respect for everyone's time. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
Karen, thank you very much for your comments this evening. Is there anybody else in the public who would care to comment? Okay. With that, I think we are ready for a motion to adjourn. And Bill, thank you and others for allowing me to be a little flexible on what should not be flexibility within our rules that we've adopted. Liz?
I motion we adjourn.
Okay. Second. Okay. All those in favor?
Thank you, Kevin.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.
Feel better,
Thanks,
Kevin.
everybody.
I will. I'm going to sleep. Although Olivia and Megan and Catherine, if we could stay on for just a couple minutes. And also everybody again, or to Megan, really, thank you for coming on board. We look forward to working with you and hope we don't drive you crazy too quickly.
See you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.
10 a.m. Bye-bye.
Bonsoir.
Bonne nuit tout le monde.
Hey,
Tout le monde.
Salamat malam.
You got it. Well done.
Tidor is afternoon, right?
L'chaim.
No.
Yes.
Salamat Tidor is, no, it's good evening.
Yeah, but that's what you say in the afternoon. Where
No, that's Salamat Soiree.
No, in the
Yes.
the timing of the day that it was, I think I was correct, at least for the Balinese Indonesia that I speak. You're like all
okay.
sophisticated from Jakarta.
Yeah. No, tidak, Papa. Tidak.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Who started the recording?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Did you start it again?
No, I think the recording's off.
Stop.
Isn't it?
Is it